With the stale scent of cheap whiskey and dust particles dancing in the dim morning light coming through dirty windows, Bill looked about the ruins of his living room. He cursed silently, the same vow reverberating in his mind as it did each and every morning. I have to clean this place. The siren song of the liquor store down the road, however, always replaced the resolve by evening. Just enough to dull the pain and haze the edges of her memory. One bottle, perhaps two. Natalie. He was left feeling hollowed out and gut-punched in this peaceful area of the Midwest more than a year after she left, chasing neon dreams and city lights. In the next county over, he had met her in a dirty honky-tonk. Immediately, sparks flew. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen in this area. He wasn't hurting for attention from women, for heaven's sake. Known for his skill with machinery, this man is the finest dang operator on the vast AgriCorp expanse, making a lot of money while operating tractors, combines, and other engines. Bill has a magical touch. Partly admiring, partly envious, the other hands would complain, metal simply pays attention to him. As though holding on just for him, he had been concentrating and planning his life since Grandma passed away shortly after he turned 18. After tech school, everyone expected him to leave town, but he returned, pushed himself to the bone, and constructed this sturdy home on the land Mother left him. Saving every penny, he understood the feeling of frigid mornings and hungry nights. He desired a house. An actual one. Prior to involving a wife. His meticulous preparations were destroyed when Natalie showed up, her eyes sparkling and her laughter effortless. When he first showed her the house, she said, "Wow, Bill. It's large." He had smiled with pride. "I made it myself." Solid. The nuptials were a haze. His passion and her desire to leave a packed farmhouse, where she was the oldest and burdened with household duties and younger siblings, led to a fast-paced affair. He had lavished her with extravagant clothing that no one in the village had ever seen, purchased from catalogs. She immediately absorbed it, ignoring the sensation of dirt beneath her fingernails. "Doing housework?" She would groan, "Oh, Bill, it ruins my hands." Or "It's just so dull." To see her smile, he had done everything, cleaning, cooking, and doing the laundry. 3 years passed in a blur of her relaxing days and his laborious effort. Then the shocking news arrived. One evening, as she paced the immaculate floor he had just swept, she said, "Bill, are you not sick of being confined here? Everyone is relocating to the city and moving up. We are simply decaying in this backwater." Unexpectedly, he blinked. "City? Nat, since when have you wanted the city? You were raised nearby." "Don't be dense, Bill. There's culture there, restaurants, theaters, not just dirt and cows." He'd lost his temper then, called her a small-town princess dreaming of big city castles. They'd fought, then made up. The topic buried but festering. 3 weeks later, he came home from a long day in the fields to an empty house, a note on the table, and a hollow space where his emergency cash stash used to be. "Met someone who understands me," it read. "Taking the cash as compensation for my wasted years." That was the day the whiskey bottle became his closest companion. He sold off the few chickens and the garden tiller, let the weeds take over the yard, let the dust settle inside. He showed up for work, mostly, though his boss, Sarge, had pulled him aside twice about smelling like booze before noon. Bill hadn't argued. He just bought 2 bottles that night instead of 1. He sighed, shaking off the memories, pulling his worn Carhartt tighter. The air outside bit hard. A deep February freeze was starting. The old John Deere would be a fight. Damn security guard never kept the heat up in the machine shed like Sarge told him to. "Excuse me." A soft voice cut through the pre-dawn gloom. Bill froze, heart hammering. Nobody should be out here. Not now. He spun around. A silhouette stood near his porch steps, a woman huddled against the cold, a small child pressed tightly against her legs. "Lord Almighty," Bill rasped, his voice rough from sleep and disuse. "What are you folks doing out here? It's freezing, especially with a kid." The woman just shrugged, a vague, defeated gesture. Things happened. Could you tell us if there's a place nearby? Somewhere we could get warm for a bit? The boy's exhausted. We don't have any money. Bill squinted, trying to make out her features in the dim light. She looked young, terribly thin. Her face etched with hardship. He knew this town. Folks were wary of strangers, more likely to call the sheriff than offer a free bed, especially to someone who looked like they'd been sleeping rough. His eyes flickered to the child, barely visible, maybe 4 or 5 years old, shivering silently. He glanced at his watch. Crap, he was already running late. If he didn't show up on time, everyone would assume he was passed out drunk again. He couldn't afford another warning from Sarge. He hesitated, torn. His gut screamed caution, but the sight of the kid, the raw desperation in the woman's posture. He sighed, digging in his pocket, fingers closing around the familiar cold metal. Keys. Not the tractor keys. The house keys. Here, he said gruffly, thrusting them toward her. Go on inside my place. It's warm. Furnace is on. Should be food in the fridge, I think. Might be messy, though. Haven't had time. The woman stared at the keys, then at him, bewildered. I get back after 6, Bill continued, already backing away. Just maybe keep a low profile, okay? People around here ask questions. He didn't wait for an answer, just turned and crunched quickly down the frozen path towards the distant lights of the AgriCorp sheds. A strange recklessness settled over him. Let them steal the damn TV. What did he care anymore? The thought barely registered. All day, wrenching on a stubborn combine engine, the image of the woman and child flickered at the edge of his mind. Were they still there? Had they just taken shelter for an hour and moved on? Driving home as dusk painted the sky purple, his truck instinctively slowed as he approached Miller's Liquor Mart. The familiar pull was strong, a physical craving. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. Just one bottle to take the edge off. But then he pictured the small figure huddled against the woman. He hesitated, then pulled into the parking lot of the small general store next door instead. He came out with his usual half-gallon of milk, a loaf of bread, and, on impulse, a bag of colorful gummy bears. He wasn't even sure why. Maybe they were long gone. As he turned onto his road, his breath hitched. A warm yellow light spilled from his living room window. It looked alien, alive. He hadn't left a light on like that in months. A knot of apprehension mixed with something he couldn't quite name tightened in Bill's chest. He parked the truck, but didn't get out immediately. The engine ticking cool in the frosty air. He felt like an intruder at his own home. Cautiously, he walked toward the house, crunching softly on the frozen ground, and peered through the living room window. His jaw dropped. He could only see part of the room, but it was unrecognizable. The stacks of old newspapers were gone. The empty bottles vanished. The layer of dust coating the coffee table had been wiped clean. Surfaces gleamed faintly in the lamplight. And there, curled up on the sofa under the old quilt he hadn't used in a year, sat the young woman and the little boy. They were looking intently at a picture book. Bill squinted. A pang hit him. He'd bought a stack of kids' books years ago, back when he and Natalie were still dreaming of filling the house with little footsteps. They'd gathered dust in a corner ever since she left. Relics of a shattered hope he couldn't bring himself to throw away, and the smell, God, the smell, drifting from the house. Something warm, savory, like beef stew. A forgotten aroma that made his stomach clench with actual hunger, not just the gnawing emptiness of booze and regret. He looked down at the bag in his hand, then quickly tucked the gummy bears deeper into the grocery sack. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the front door. The woman jumped up, startled, color flooding her pale cheeks. "Oh, hello," she stammered, wiping her hands on a dish towel tucked into the waistband of her worn jeans. Danny and I, tidied up a little. Hope you don't mind. I made some stew. It's ready if you're hungry." Bill stood there momentarily speechless. Up close, with the grime washed away and the worry lines softened slightly by the warm light, She was surprisingly pretty. Despite her thinness, younger than he'd first thought. Her eyes, wide and blue, held a hint of fear but also a quiet dignity. "Hungry?" he echoed, pulling off his muddy boots. "Yeah, starving, actually. Smells incredible." He felt awkward, clumsy in his own cleaned-up house. She hurried towards the kitchen area. "Sit down, please. I'll get you a bowl." Bill hung his coat on the hook by the door, a hook that hadn't been used in months, and walked toward the boy who watched him with wide, solemn eyes. Bill crouched down slightly, offering a hesitant hand. "Name's Bill." The boy looked at the woman, who gave a tiny nod before shyly placing his small hand in Bill's. "I'm Danny. Nice to meet you." Bill remembered the candy. "Got something for you." He pulled out the gummy bears. Danny's eyes lit up, but he again looked to the woman for permission before accepting the bag with a whispered, "Thank you." Bill sat at the small kitchen table, the only clear surface in the house. Just that morning, the woman, he still didn't know her name, placed a steaming bowl in front of him. He inhaled deeply, the rich scent filling his senses. He ate quickly, ravenously, the warmth spreading through him. Only when the bowl was empty did he speak. "That," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "was the best damn stew I've had in, well, maybe ever." A small, genuine smile touched her lips. "Thank you. It's the least we could do after you." Her smile faded, replaced by a shadow. "We should probably get going. Don't want to impose any longer." Bill frowned, surprised. "Going where?" "You in a hurry." She looked down at her hands. "No, nowhere to hurry to." An hour later, Danny was asleep on the sofa, tucked tightly under the quilt, the half-empty bag of gummy bears clutched in his hand. The woman, who finally introduced herself as Annie, sat across from Bill at the kitchen table. He'd made them both instant coffee. The silence stretched awkwardly between them. Finally, she looked up, her large blue eyes meeting his, filled with a mixture of shame and determination. "Bill," she began, her voice low but steady, "I need you to know we're not bums, not really. It's just that things got twisted up bad." She took a shaky breath. "I made a mistake years ago. Went off to community college, fell for the wrong guy, got pregnant." She glanced toward the sleeping boy. "Don't regret Danny, not for a second. He's my world. But I had to drop out, go back home to Mom. Things weren't much better there." Mom had remarried, Annie continued, tracing patterns on the tabletop with her finger. "A younger guy. She wasn't exactly thrilled to have me back, especially with a baby on the way. I found out later she was insecure, worried about her new husband noticing me." She sighed. "Danny was born, and things settled into a routine. A hard one. Mom basically made me the unpaid housekeeper and farmhand. Never had a dime to my name, living off their charity. The stepfather, Wayne, he bought things for Danny, sometimes acted like the big provider." Her expression darkened. "Then Wayne decided Mom was too old for him. Decided I looked a lot better." Annie shuddered, wrapping her arms around herself. "He started making comments, trying to touch me. I told him flat out to get lost, threatened to tell Mom." She laughed bitterly. "Turns out I didn't have to. Mom found out somehow. Maybe she saw something, but instead of blaming him, she blamed me. Said I was flaunting myself, leading him on." The next part came out in a rush, laced with disbelief and fear. They decided they wanted to be a proper family, and that family apparently needed Danny, but not me. Mom said she'd have me declared an unfit mother, take Danny away. Said she'd tell the court I was unstable, jobless, living off them. She said she could make things up easy." She paused. "I heard them talking one night. I grabbed Danny, took what little cash I had hidden, and just ran. I know they'll look for us. Mom won't give up that easily. She wants my son." Bill listened, leaning forward, the cheap coffee forgotten. He felt a surge of anger towards this Wayne, this mother who would turn on her own daughter. He looked at Annie's pale, earnest face, the fear still lurking in her eyes, then at the sleeping child who had brought unexpected light back into his home. He stirred his cold coffee slowly. "Listen, Annie," he said finally, his voice quiet but firm. "You too. You can stay here for now. As long as you need. Figure things out. I'm gone most of the day anyway. You won't be in my way." He saw the relief flood her face, the tears welling in her eyes. "Really, Bill? Thank you. We won't cause any trouble." He just nodded, a strange sense of purpose settling over him. "Get some rest. We'll figure it out." The following week transformed Bill's house and Bill himself. The lingering scent of stale whiskey was replaced by the aroma of simmering soup, baking bread, and clean laundry. Annie was a whirlwind of quiet efficiency, scrubbing floors he hadn't realized were that dirty, organizing cupboards, bringing order to the chaos he'd let fester for so long. More importantly, the silence was gone, replaced by Danny's childish chatter and the low murmur of Annie's voice as she read to him or hummed while she worked. Bill found himself hurrying home from the farm, the pull of the liquor store fading entirely. Evenings were spent tinkering with Danny's one worn-out toy truck at the kitchen table or reading aloud from the dusty books Bill had almost thrown away. He showed Danny pictures of the big tractors, explaining how they worked. The boy's eyes wide with fascination. He felt lighter. The heavy shroud of grief and bitterness was lifting, slowly, tentatively. He saw Annie watching him sometimes, a hesitant smile on her face. They talked more easily now, sharing simple details about their days. The awkwardness was replaced by a comfortable companionship. This felt right, like the life he'd once dreamed of before Natalie shattered it. He pushed that thought away quickly. This was temporary. Annie and Danny were just passing through. He was just helping them out, wasn't he? One crisp afternoon, driving his pickup back from checking fences on the far section, Brenda from down the road flagged him down, her face alight with gossip. "Bill. Hey, Bill. Guess the prodigal wife returns, huh? Congratulations are in order, I suppose." Bill slammed on the brakes, his blood running cold. "What? What are you talking about, Brenda?" "Natalie saw her pull up to your place about an hour ago. All dolled up. Big city plates on her car." "Guess she finally came to her senses," Brenda chirped, oblivious to the look of horror dawning on Bill's face. "Natalie," he gasped. "Yeah, now with Annie and Danny inside." Panic seized him. He mumbled a thanks to Brenda and slammed the truck into gear, tires spitting gravel as he peeled away, racing towards the house. What would Natalie say? What would she do? He pictured Annie's frightened eyes, Danny shrinking away. No, he floored the accelerator, the truck roaring down the country road. He had to get there now. He burst through the front door without knocking, his heart pounding against his ribs like a trapped bird. The scene stopped him cold. Natalie was perched elegantly on the edge of his sofa, the clean, tidy sofa, striking a pose like a magazine model. She wore expensive-looking clothes, her hair perfectly styled, a stark, alien presence in the simple room. She looked up, a practiced pout forming on her lips. "Well, finally," she drawled, her voice dripping with faux injury. "Took you long enough. Not exactly the welcome home I was expecting, Billy." But Bill wasn't looking at her finery. His eyes scanned the room frantically empty. No sign of Annie. No sign of Danny. The picture book lay abandoned on the floor. "Where are they?" he demanded, his voice dangerously low. Natalie arched a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "Excuse me, is that any way to greet your wife after all this time? Aren't you thrilled to see me?" She still thought she had him wrapped around her little finger. Fury, cold and pure, surged through Bill. He crossed the room in 2 strides, grabbed her arm, and hauled her roughly to her feet. "I asked you," he growled, his face inches from hers. "Where are Annie and Danny?" She yelped, fear finally flashing in her eyes. "I don't know. How should I know? Some woman and a kid. They mumbled something about leaving and just left. Went home, I guess." "Let go of me, Bill. You're hurting me." He shoved her away from him, disgusted. Get out, he snarled, heading for the door. Get your stuff and get out of my house. I want you gone by the time I get back. He paused at the doorway, turning back to look at her stunned, indignant face. And I mean it, Natalie. Gone. He didn't wait for her reaction. He slammed the door behind him and sprinted toward his truck. An hour, Brenda said. They could be miles away by now on foot, in the freezing dusk. Where would they even go? Out onto the highway? Panic clawed at his throat. Damn it, he needed something faster, something better for off-road. Sarge. He drove recklessly toward the main AgriCorp office and machine sheds, praying his boss was still there. Sarge listened, his weathered face grim, as Bill breathlessly explained the situation. Without a word, Sarge tossed him the keys to his own gleaming Ford F-250 pickup. Take the truck, Bill. Better clearance than yours. 4-wheel drive. Go find them. Thanks, Sarge. I owe you. Just bring M back safe, Sarge called after him. Good to see the lights back on in your eyes, son. Don't let him go out again. Bill drove, scanning the ditches, the fields, the darkening tree lines along the county roads radiating out from town. Miles clicked by. Doubt nodded at him, then he saw them. Huddled beneath a large skeletal oak tree, about 5 miles out, trying to shelter from the biting wind. He slammed on the brakes, truck skidding on the gravel shoulder, and leaped out, running toward them. Annie looked up, her face streaked with tears. Danny was shivering violently in her arms. Annie! Danny! What the hell are you doing? He choked out, pulling them both into a fierce hug. Don't you ever do that again. You scared the life out of me. Annie sobbed against his chest. She said she was your wife. Bill said you still loved her, that you were waiting for her. She said. People like us, runaways, trash, we didn't deserve anything. She choked on the words, clinging to him. He held her tighter, stroking Danny's hair, his own eyes stinging. She's wrong, Annie. She's so wrong. He held them both, the warmth of them seeping into his frozen heart, chasing away the last vestiges of the old despair. He knew, with absolute certainty, what he had to do. When her sobs quieted slightly, he pulled back just enough to look her in the eyes. We're going home, he said, his voice thick but firm. And tomorrow, we're going to the courthouse to get things sorted. I'm not letting you two out of my sight again. Annie didn't argue. She simply leaned against him, relief washing over her face, her hand tightening on his arm. Danny, sniffling but calmer now in the circle of Bill's embrace, looked up at him, his blue eyes wide and serious. Bill? Yeah, buddy. Are you going to be my dad now? Bill's breath caught. He looked from the boy's hopeful face to Annie's tear-filled eyes. A slow smile spread across his face. Yeah, Danny, he said softly. Yeah, I guess I am. Danny's face broke into a brilliant grin. He threw his small arms around both Bill and Annie, hugging them tightly. Back at the house, Natalie's fancy car was gone, leaving only the lingering scent of her expensive perfume quickly fading in the warm, stew-scented air. Life settled into a new rhythm, one filled with purpose and quiet joy. Bill filed the initial paperwork for adoption, consulted a lawyer about Annie's situation, and started fixing up the second bedroom for Danny. They were a team, building something real, something solid. The day they returned from the county clerk's office, marriage license safely tucked away, flushed with shy happiness, they found unexpected and unwelcome visitors parked in the driveway. A beat-up sedan was spitting exhaust fumes. Annie's breath hitched. Her mother and Wayne, the stepfather, stormed toward the porch as Bill, Annie, and Danny got out of the truck. Well, hello there, Annie's mother sneered, her eyes hard as pebbles, fixing on Danny. About time. Danny, get your things. We're going home. Her gaze flickered dismissively over Annie. And as for you, I hope they lock you up where you belong, abandoning your child. Annie turned pale, instinctively pulling Danny behind her. Bill stepped forward, placing himself squarely between them and his new family. "Hold on just a minute," he said, his voice calm but carrying an edge of steel. "Who the hell are you barging onto my property, talking to my family like that?" The woman sniffed disdainfully. "Family? We're her family." She jerked her chin toward Annie. "Probably filled your head with lies. She's trash. Always has been. A runaway drunk." "That's enough," Bill interrupted, his voice dropping dangerously. "One more word against my wife, and I don't care if you're a woman or not." The mother recoiled slightly, sputtering. "Wife? Her." "That's right, my wife." Bill put his arm around Danny's shoulders, pulling him close, and this, he placed his other hand protectively on Danny's head, "is my son. Adoption's already in process. So I'll thank you to get off my land now." Silence hung heavy for a moment. Wayne, the stepfather who had been lurking silently behind the mother, suddenly seemed to realize the ground had shifted. He took a step back, then another, turned, and scurried back to the car without a word. Annie's mother stared, momentarily stunned, then whirled around. "Wayne, wait for me." She shot one last venomous glare at Annie and Bill before hurrying after him. The sedan coughed to life and sped away, leaving only a cloud of dust and the quiet peace of the afternoon. Bill looked down at Annie, who was trembling slightly but smiling through her tears. He squeezed her shoulder. Danny looked up at them both, his small face resolute. They stood there for a moment, the three of them framed in the doorway of the house that was finally, truly a home.